Hi everyone, I'm here with Chad Moxness from Transervice, who had a great submission for the Geotab Vibe Coding Hackathon, and we're going to talk about that and other projects he has done at Transervice. So, Chad, why don't you introduce yourself first?
My name is Chad Moxness. I am the manager of field logistics technology here at Transervice, which is a really broad title that basically means I handle all of our technology that goes out into the field that drivers touch, dispatchers touch, managers touch, the Geotab devices, the MDM software, the TMS software, all the EDI integrations, plus all of the in-house development. It's a big encompassing job.
Wow, so how big is the fleet and how long have you been working with Geotab?
So our fleet in Geotab is about 350 to 400 units, depending upon some of our surge fleets and time of year. We've been with Geotab. It's over 5 years.
Wow.
We've been with them through our partner GoFleet, the reseller GoFleet. They've been helping us really get into Geotab, and they have been wonderful. And I call them partners because that's what they've really treated us as a partner, and to bring us into the ecosystem and make us feel like the whole thing was available to us. It wasn't, this is our brand and you need to stay in the house. It was, this is Geotab, welcome to the community. This is how it works.
How has your relationship with Geotab changed throughout the years?
We moved to Geotab because we needed to get away from the Rand McNally TND 760s and the 765 series. They were all on Sprint 3G network, and the Sprint 3G network was being deprecated, and the ELD mandate was in effect, and so we needed to figure out a rapid solution that we could, stay ELD compliant, but we had the future to grow with. We felt that Rand McNally was very closed system. I mean, it ran on Silverlight. GPS pings were slow. It did the job that it was required to do, but we were looking for something better. And Geotab was the answer. And so we initially rolled it out in one fleet of about 50 trucks out of Salina, Kansas. And the adoption rate just accelerated from there. I mean, it was before we knew it, we had folks banging on our door going, "We want it." And we're like, "We haven't even, figured out the deployment cycle yet." They're like, "We don't care, just give it to us."
I love that.
So
So,
yeah,
and that's like 5 years ago when
yeah,
basically you want a faster GPS, but throughout these 5 years and in your position, you've been able to figure out so many more things that you can do.
yes, yes. So me being a programmer, I started, digging into the API and seeing what was available and what was the value add for Transervice within, Geotab. Like we're making this monthly expenditure. How can we get the most value out of it, for the company? And that was data, because we weren't doing anything with data. We were what I called at the time data aware. We knew it of its existence, but we didn't know how to apply it, what the principles were behind any of it. And Geotab was kind of that nexus point where we actually had a business reason to start delving into and growing that aspect of the business. It was, where we entered the data world. So that was my introduction, was Geotab. I went to the data boot camp a few years ago, and then I started going to Connect. I was really having fun at Connect. In 24, I went to Connect, won the hackathon that year with Team 9.
Oh, it's not your
Yeah.
first time. It's
No,
nice.
no, no. Our journey with Geotab has just been, like a rocket ship. I mean, I like to think that at Transervice, our department is dragging everyone to the future, but the reality is the engine behind that, a lot of it was initially Geotab. It was what was propelling us forward. Customers became more aware of what Geotab could do. The requests started coming in, and it became part of our entire ecosystem now.
Now we did the hackathon again. This time we did it online to reach even more people. And you were at Geotab Connect this year because now
Yes.
it's not only about data awareness, it's also about AI awareness. How has that changed
hmm
your life?
I initially had no implementation for AI outside of just the use of the agents, Claude and Gemini. When I watched your presentation with Claude, I was blown away. I realized that there was this just giant hole in my toolbox that, oh, that's what tool goes there. And so I went home after Connect and played with Claude, and learned how its underlying algorithm works in different scenarios, different cases over different context lengths, and was kind of peeking without looking at the code, looking at the behavior, And then, using deductive reasoning, okay, this is how it handles these kinds of cases, and this is why Claude will be better for this type of programming, where Gemini will be better over here. And, by reaching for the right tool at the right time, I was able to just accelerate right through, my development progress. Like I said, I wasn't familiar with fibers when I set out to do this. I just had a vision, an architectural and engineering vision in mind that I wanted to achieve. And that was just the tool I was going to use to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast you can go because you understand fleets. You've been working with this for a long time. You understand data. You
Yes.
understand Claude and Gemini. You play with them every day. But then going to one talk where the presenter shows like, look, you can connect this with this, unleash all
Mhm.
this imagination and speed. And you submitted this PHP project to the hackathon, but you've been doing way more than that.
Yes, I walked out of there and it was like a new fold in my brain had appeared, where a whole new region of ideas was just exploding from. I've looked at a lot of data in Geotab, and there's a ton of binary data coming through and whatnot. And one of the irritations of most modern developers, right, is that JS, while very abstracted, uh, you know, it's not thought of as a like binary level language. We're not going to deal with this at the byte level because we have objects, and objects are so much easier, and we move through stuff. And I had a thought experiment occur. I said, well, what if I try to write TypeScript as though it were C? And then I started coming up with a use case, and I said, well, okay, what practical problem does this solve? Like, what is my goal? How do I define success, right? And I said, I know. I will take strings and convert them into string representation. And so I transcode it to hex, then transcode it to JSF, and then write it to file. Now memory size is no longer an issue.
Uh, I'm wondering because you have this skill to optimize byte code, you're using the same optimizing skills to optimize fleet operations. How do you
Yeah,
translate these kind of ideas to the real world?
yeah. When I was a supervisor at Seattle Times with Transervice, we were doing bulk newspaper delivery. We had some old trucks that were coming up for replacement, and so we started getting into all kinds of questions on replacement. What length, what size, what specification. And my first response was, "Oh, that's great, but you intend for these to be non-CDL trucks, so chop the last 7 feet off the frame rail that you don't need, save the weight, and your gross weight remains the same." Again, it's just thinking differently. And then you put these new trucks, even though they're shiny and new, they're best for the highway. Put them on our long hauls. That's where we're going to get the most mileage gain out of them. Right? It's just a different form of thinking than most people look at things.
Your submission to the Geotab Vibe Coding Hackathon was not a new dashboard for Geotab, but a new library for anyone that wants to build with Geotab to use PHP. Because our libraries for PHP are not the most up-to-date ones, and you saw an opportunity to anyone that's
Yes.
coding with PHP and Geotab, I'll make their life better, faster, more optimal, as you tend to think.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now tell me
Yes.
about it.
Efficiency, yes. Efficiency is at the goal of it. One of the prompts that I gave the AI when writing the SDK, or initially just architecting it and kind of spitballing how this was all going to work out, was I want the core processes to be able to chew on data while it's waiting on responses from outside servers. So right at the start, this asynchronous idea was planted into the whole seed of the operation. Like this has to work this way. Like we cannot have any other way. Asynchronous operations is like, I described to my wife like making a pot of coffee while doing the laundry, right? You load one machine, you set it to run, and you walk away. You listen for the timer. You don't stand in front of it all day long and wait for it to run and then move it to the next. That would be insane.
Yes, it's I can wait for this thing, but while I'm waiting, I'm going to do all this other stuff. This was a submission with PHP that the judges love for its practicality, for its usage. But then you are also doing parallel projects. While you wait for this one, you're doing more with Geotab, you're doing more. Tell me about those
Yes.
projects.
Outside of just this project, I've written my own, SDKs for Geotab baseline, in Python and in both JavaScript and TypeScript. Why? I don't like the supply chain dependency. I feel that when you have things like fetch, that are native, to the API set, I just have to do a little bit of abstraction and a little bit of computer science on my side, and I shrink a whole attack vector. That is something I look at. At one point, one of my first projects with Geotab was just cataloging all of the data. We needed to see what it looks like. So we ran feeds into a MySQL database. At one point, we hit 250 million records for log records. Indexes that size. It was a real learning lesson, and those kinds of big data lessons drove what happened next. Like with the winning entry for the 24 hackathon was a map add-in, because map add-ins were the topic of the hackathon that year.
And that was an in-person hackathon.
Yes. It was a lot of fun. And what we put together was basically HOS ELD compliance data that was live in the map screen for the user. So when you moused over it, right, and then moused over one of the trucks on the road, you could see instant HOS data. We added color code and whatnot, to the HOS times. So, red, yellow, green around rest, work available, cycle remaining, so that, it helps grab attention. You can click on different segments. Like if you see a driver's missing a driver's license, you can click on that map added, and it'll take you right to that driver's page, right there to the anchor for the driver's license, so that you can update it right then and there and get them back ELD, ready to roll in less than 15 seconds. Like again, efficiency being the goal, but it all runs on concurrency, right? We're doing it by running feeds in the background, and we're just hammering away on the feeds. And again, when asked how does it scale, well, it's already, you built the scale into the system. It's scaled at the user. So like, there is no client side, stress here. It's all born on you guys, which I remember one of the engineers saying, I see what you've done with my API, and I'm not sure that I like it, but it's good. And then a few months, and then about a year later, rate limits hit.
Yes.
Yes,
so we do need to work around the rate limits because people need the data.
But that's one of the things that we featured was, in the SDK that I submitted, was we had the errors as data, right? So we were catching errors and we were returning them as data types, so that the overall flow would continue without doom towers, and you could see why it failed, and then delegate action based on it at the user level.
Now, how are you using Geotab today? I'm thinking of all these levels. Okay. You have the ability to copy all the data to your own databases. You have the ability to create add-ins. You can create those add-ins as you used to create them, or now you can ask Claude to create or Gemini to create them. And then there's also ACE that you can ask questions and wait for the answer. How are you putting all of this together these days?
I am looking to add ACE support to our internal library, like I did for the submission. So I built an ACE service called ACE Chat in my submission, where you create a new object. The method is ask. You pass it a string with your question, and then it just takes care of the polling results, and then returns all the data to you, the user. I want to bring that into our in-house library, which Geotab doesn't do currently in their SDK. It's too new on the market. You guys haven't had time to deploy it. I have the luxury of being not bound by committee. So
yes, that's why we build on the edge. Like the MCP server for Geotab is going to exist, but in the meantime, we can build our own and share it between us.
I would like to make ACE more user-friendly for our dispatchers and our end users, right? There's a lot of focus on executives, dashboards, this, that, and the other, but the people that are running the system day to day can't be overlooked either. They have questions that are totally different from what the executive is concerned about, right? The executive is concerned about miles per gallon and whatnot. Meanwhile, we might have concerns over traffic conditions and whatnot, or truck health. Hey, driver called in and said that RPM is sluggish to the throttle. Hey, Ace, what's the DPF health on this truck, right? And those kinds of questions it's not the strategic game changers, it's the day-to-day game changers for them, right?
Tactical.
Two different audiences.
Yes. So what changes are you making to ACE today, and what changes would you like Geotab to make?
So right now, ACE is not in use at all, really, by our folks, outside of individual queries through the formal, the little Ask ACE buttons or the icons that you guys have decorated around the website. If they've noticed them, I mean, a lot of these guys, their life is very, very busy. They're watching dashboards and whatnot, and they don't necessarily have time to sit around and play with an AI and understand how it works for them. So getting that, just like the PHP SDK mentioned in the story, we're changing 30 years of PHP culture where it's, synchronous, it's one line, to, hey, it can be asynchronous. Same thing, culture change, right? How can we help you and show you how the AI, make it more available to you? If it's just as simple as adding it to, that dashboard screen that they're using, or it's not that dashboard screen, but the add-in, right? Add a text box that just links that add-in directly so they never leave the map. They never lose sight of anything. It's all right there for them, just like Copilot does in VS Code, right, on the side panel.
Yeah,
it's all right there. It would be a chat right there in the side panel form. We're bringing the market to the audience instead of waiting for the audience to come to the market.
Yes, and these add-ins are add-ins that you have built. Are the Geotab dashboards? What are they using today?
If you permit me, I can actually show you.
Oh, please! I love a good demo.
We are looking at a add-in we use. It's the final evolution of our entry in 2024 for the hackathon, where the subject was map add-ins. And what we've got here is our truck data, which includes direction, speed, and truck number, so that the individual dispatcher can quickly know what truck so-and-so is in. Then their ELD required information, so the VIN number, the license plate, state and number, and the same for the driver, going through the driver's license number. All of this data is ELD required data. So if it were to be missing for a driver, those fields get highlighted as red for the user. Fortunately, I don't think we have anyone that's not ELD compliant at Transervice right now. So I don't have, since this is live data, I don't think I can find someone that's gonna give me a bad read here. Yeah, they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing right now, which is good news. But if they were missing it and I wanted to update it, I could just click on the driver's name and it'll take me right to where I can edit his driver's license number.
Nice. You were telling me that all of this is in a single HTML file hosted by Geotab.
Yes, so we had a infrastructure issue at Transervice that caused us to lose our ability to remote host our add-in. So what we did was we repackaged the whole thing into a single HTML file, loaded all the JavaScript into a single tag, all the style sheets into a single style tag, and then took the Transervice logo, ran it as a base 64 encoding into an image tag, and then stuck it all in there as one HTML file for Geotab to host. And so the whole thing runs either in the JavaScript client on the client machine or off of Geotab servers. It's nothing for Transervice.
Beautiful. I'm glad that Geotab is able to host everything and that you were able to pack everything, including the picture. And I love that we made this online and open source. Like you had to share a GitHub repo so you can see what others submitted and start sharing ideas.
Yes, it was fantastic.
So you build this type of add-ins for your users. You want to give them a seamless experience. You don't even need a hosting infrastructure because Geotab gives you this. And now your question is like how to incorporate things like ACE inside this dashboard.
Yes. Yeah. And in my vision, it's something as simple as just like right down here, we just add another div. We drop in another div or a component, right? And then have all the JS already done for the interaction. Because I mean, JS, we don't have to build the reactor. We don't have to build the fibers and deal with all that. The event loop's already there. And so we just sit there and poll and then return results. The biggest thing will just be making sure that the user understands that the system's working, right? without just giving it a loading wheel and thinking, oh, it's hung. No, like it's just processing stuff. This is a live alert system. If a driver goes into violation, it'll flash a message over here saying in violation and what the violation is, right? Is it drive time, 14 hours, total workday? And now we're looking at the trend data. We're in fact, tomorrow I have a meeting to work on consolidating a bunch of Geotab reports down into more singular unified report, because the results of those 17 reports that we're running as individual reports out of Geotab, like one for this terminal, one for that terminal, it's been so positive, right? We need to expand it, but the scale of individual terminals is not manageable. We build something in the meantime, right, that is current to the infrastructure, the emailed Excel reports. But what we do, on like a fork or a sidetrack, is we start building out the data lake that will populate and drive our own versions of those reports and really open it up, right? Because when we let the data analysts have it in Power BI, they're going to do a lot more than anything I could ever think of, right? That's not my neighborhood.
I love the loop, which is you develop one report, people love it. Suddenly you have 17 reports because people love them so much. And then comes the question of how do we consolidate and keep growing again?
Yeah, it's organic scale is what it is, right? Positive results yielded positive results, keep doing the same thing. And now it's like, oh man, we have so much here. It's impossible to manage. How do we manage it? And that's scale. It's just with spreadsheets instead of users.
Yes. And what's in your wish list for Geotab? What would you ask Geotab to make this whole process easier for you?
I would love, man, that's a tough question, because Geotab has so much awesome stuff. But what I would really love is to be able to have a better, more seamless camera integration. Like right now we use Netrodyne. Netrodyne runs in an add-in. It, like we just discussed, it's its whole separate space. And I would love to be able to have a way, even if it was on us, to integrate with, to bridge the gap, right? To do the integration between Geotab and Netrodyne.
If the menu cameras show up as a top menu, it should include all your cameras, all your video feeds, and that's what the user expects.
Yes, that's exactly what the user is expecting. But like from the engineer and the backend perspective, by bringing everything together to one point, we're trying to make Geotab our single source of truth, where we're bringing everything in because you guys are already so open. You're already handling all of it.
Yes.
Right.
So this will be a single point where you find everything. So how do we make your life easier, especially with all the cameras? What would you like people at Geotab to remember from this conversation? And what would you like people outside Geotab to remember from this conversation?
AI is a tool, right? As I said in my README, a hammer makes a terrible screwdriver. People need to remember that AI is a tool, and it is only as useful as the operator operating the tool, right? If you don't know the engineering behind it and you're just copy pasting everything, or you're just dragging in libraries and you don't understand what you're doing, you might build something phenomenal that works in one location, one time, under one circumstance, versus if you understand the engineering, you understand how to use the tool, you build the system to be resilient, and the whole thing, lasts longer, and you escape the AI slop, right? Because a tool operator knows what they're looking at and says, no. Just like you would never cut a junior dev loose in your code base and say, all right, optimize. Like nobody would ever do that, but we somehow want to do that with the AI. Like, no.
AI can do so much, but it's as smart as you are. Thank you so much, Chad, and everyone watching us.
Thank you, Felipe.
You know where to find us. I'm on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Chad, at least it's on GitHub, and we are all sharing the best. And hopefully you will get to share with us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Felipe.